welcome to Tea Time. I'm Ray Rinaldi, your host for tonight, and we will be talking about discussing how the Affordable Health Care Act, or Obamacare, is truly an attack on our First Amendment rights. Forcing religious institutions, specifically the Catholic Church, as well as individual employees, to provide services which they're against their religious belief and conscience. So tonight we have an expert to talk about this, and his name is Nick Rago. Nick, welcome to Tea Time.
Ray, pleasure to be here.
Nick is the founder of Veritas Conservative Alliance, a conservative citizens group based in Union County, New Jersey. Nick has served as past president of the Morristown Tea Party, where he founded a number of chapters of the organization throughout northern New Jersey. And he's listed in the Speakers Bureau at the nationally recognized Tea Party Patriots. Nick has spoken at numerous rallies and has been an invited guest speaker at many Tea Party organizations. He has recently started an initiative to reach out to the religious community, speaking about the threat to religious freedom as a result of the recent mandates regarding the implementation of the Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act. He lives in New Providence with his wife Sharon and has been blessed with 2 grandsons and another grandchild on the way, which have been his motivation for addressing the issues which he believes are threatening our nation today. So Nick, welcome.
Thank you, Ray.
Yes. You know, the First Amendment says Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof.
And that's been twisted and perverted all different ways. And it's amazing that with the threat of losing our First Amendment rights, that more people are not really up in arms over this. I mean, there was a bit of controversy when it first came out and the church started to speak on it, but now there's been a silence. And I think people really don't understand the magnitude of what is happening. You know, we let the left frame the narrative all the time, and they start talking about contraceptives and this and that, and the church is imposing their beliefs. But let me just put it clearly as to what's happening. Kathleen Sebelius, the Secretary of the Department of Health and Human Services, an unelected bureaucrat, has decreed that our right to practice our faith in conformance with our conscience, of freedom, a right that's enshrined in the First Amendment of our Constitution and roots going back to the Magna Carta, can be rendered null and void when considerations are given to the implementation of the Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act. If that doesn't send chills down the spine of every American, losing our First Amendment rights, what will? And when are we going to wake up and do something about it?
And then after the First Amendment right, then the Second Amendment right, they'll work on that. So, but you know, people think, I think sometimes that, and I've spoken to, you know, people of faith, and they say, oh no, can't be. But they're not informing themselves. So hopefully tonight you can shed a little more light on it and you know, explain exactly how this is going to affect, specifically, I guess, the different organizations, like, for instance, Catholic charities, the Catholic hospitals, and not just Catholic hospitals, but, you know, other denominations as well, and schools.
Exactly, exactly. The church itself is not affected by it because it's exempt, but in the example of the Catholic Church, which has the schools, it has the Catholic charities, hospitals. Now, if each of these organizations are forced, and that's the law went into effect on August 1st, to cover in their insurance policies the abortifacients and the contraceptives, which are against the teaching of the church, you're telling people that your conscience, your freedom to practice your religion as you believe it and as you see it and as your church teaches it can be trumped by this act that was forced through Congress, this Obamacare, if you will, the Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act. So what's going to happen? Are the bishops going to fight this to the end? Are they going to go to jail on it? Are they going to shut down the charities and the hospitals? Where does this go? And yet, you hear silence. You hear silence from the laity. you hear virtual silence from the church, and that's the sad part.
It is, and you know, I have to say, I've been trying to get the deanery in Bergen County, where I am, to have you present this to the Catholics to be informed, and I've gotten zero response. So I don't know. You know, I don't know. Well, I'm going to keep trying, of course, but you know, it's just amazing to me that people don't understand that it doesn't matter whether you believe in abortion or don't believe in abortion. If you don't believe in abortion, okay, which I don't believe in abortion, okay, why should I be forced to pay for someone's abortion, or contraception, or sterilization, or aborting drugs that abort the babies? Why should I, against my conscience? I mean, you don't even have to go to war if you're a conscientious objector.
Exactly.
Okay? But they don't even leave you room for the conscience clause. And doctors are going to, what are they going to perform abortions when it's against? They're not going to do that.
I've spoken to some doctors, and they're very, they're going to be, you know, between a rock and a hard place, too. This is the government coming down on us. And, you know, Ray, this didn't happen in a vacuum. This, you know, as awful as it is, a lot of us saw it coming. I mean, the government's been growing. It's been intruding into so many aspects of our lives. We have an administration that's ruling by decree and imposing a soft tyranny on us. We have a Congress that's virtually silent on it. We have a Supreme Court that's not doing their obligation to uphold the Constitution. And Justice Roberts, when he went through those contortions to say that this law can stand, he then admonished the American people, and I just want to get the quote right because it's important. And he quoted, he said, "The members of this court are vested with the authority to interpret the law. We possess neither the expertise nor the prerogative to make policy judgments. Those decisions are entrusted to our nation's elected leaders, who can be thrown out of office if the people disagree with them. It is not our job to protect the people from the consequences of their political choices." End quote. So basically what he's saying is, you're on your own. And if the three branches of government are not doing what they should be doing, then it leaves the people. And it leaves the people to start raising their voices and to become and do nothing more than the founders asked us to do. Take part in the everyday politics of our government and how it affects our lives, our children, and our grandchildren.
Right, and again, it goes back to elections have consequences.
Absolutely, they
And
do.
you know, when he put elected officials, now Catherine Sebelius is not an elected official.
That's the idea.
And here, all these bureaucrats are telling us what we have to do, and it's against our religious convictions.
Exactly.
And they don't even allow for it. I mean, I just find it, I find it appalling that more people of faith aren't understanding that this has nothing to do with abortion, contraception, or sterilization, even though it does. It's going against the First Amendment, which men and women are dying for today,
every day,
fighting for, so that we can preserve our First Amendment rights. And it's being trampled on, and nobody's speaking out.
I came across a quote. It's a Latin quote, and it's from Virgil's Aeneid. And it's audentes fortuna juvat. Translated means, fortune favors the bold. That's what we have to learn. We have to learn that we cannot be timid, that we have to be bold. And this goes for our church and our church leaders. I mean, you know, we've been taught the meek will inherit the earth. But I suggest to you, it's the bold who are going to determine exactly what that inheritance is going to look like. Do you want the inheritance you leave for the kids and the grandkids to be the inheritance that's determined by the left, by a progressive secular ideology, or do you want the founding principles and our Judeo-Christian heritage to be part of that inheritance? The only way we're going to get it is to be bold and to speak out.
Right, and I agree with you 100%. And, you know, like, again, we're going back to the fact this is not just a Catholic issue, okay? But the administration sees the Catholic Church as the biggest obstacle.
Exactly.
Is that correct?
Exactly.
Right?
You know, everybody is pointing to it and saying, well, that's the Catholic Church, you know, and they've got their own problems, they got their own issues, so why should we be concerned about it? People have to be a little bit smarter than that. The Catholic Church, with its hierarchy and with its absolute moral absolutism, is the biggest obstacle standing in the way of this progressive secular agenda. Now, the people have to understand, if the Catholic Church is forced to bow down on this, this administration will accept no breach of their decrees from any other denomination. So, just a quick analogy on it.
Okay.
If a bully walks into a schoolyard and he sees the biggest kid and he goes over and he knocks him on his butt and beats him up, he assures that everybody else in that schoolyard is going to listen to him and not challenge him. That's what's happening with the Catholic Church. If they can knock the church down, if the church fathers bow to the altar of progressive secularism, it's over. And our Jewish brothers and sisters should also understand, they know what happens when good people say nothing. So this goes across all lines.
Right.
Don't focus on contraceptives or Catholic issues. This is an affront on who we are as Americans.
Yeah, and you know, I just thought of this, and I don't know if this is a good analogy, but you know, when 9/11
Yes.
happened, and you know, everybody was outraged that they didn't hear enough from the moderate Muslims. They were
Right.
quiet. They said nothing. So you know, there's you know, with this situation, as far as our First Amendment right, being silent, for me, in my humble opinion, is a sin of omission.
Yes.
I mean, to not speak or even learn about it. If you still come to the same conclusion, fine. But just don't say, oh, you know, it's not happening. It is happening.
It is happening.
And, you know, it's, hopefully people will listen to this and, you know, will be able to go on your website, which I want to, we'll say it again, but your website is Veritas Conservative Alliance.org.
You got it.
And you have information on that website?
We are building it, some changes on it now. We're going to have some more information on the religious issue. I mean, we go across the board on all the things that are happening in the country right now.
Right, right.
The group, as founded, is a very faith-based group.
Okay.
And they want to address these issues. So it's a good reason for us to really push this.
Right, right. Well, hopefully we'll get a lot of people to go on. That's again, Veritas Conservative Alliance.org.
Right.
And you'll get some more information. And as well, I hope everybody would go on our website, which is NewJerseyTeaPartyCoalition.org, and get more information as well. But like I said, we have to really speak out and really try to learn about this. So we're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back. Thanks, Dick. That was good. Yeah.
It's a fast run, boy.
Right?
Very fast. Unbelievable.
With all the excitement happening with the Tea Party, it may be a little hard to separate fact from fiction. Find out the truth for yourself. Visit the New Jersey Tea Party Coalition's website at www.njteapartycoalition.org. You may find a common voice to your concerns on how our government is functioning, and discover a means to help restore our nation based on the proven principles of our Constitution.
Hi, and welcome back to Tea Time. I'm Ray Rinaldi, and this segment's brought to you by NewJerseyTeaPartyCoalition.org. And our guest tonight is Nick Rago, who is the founder of Veritas Conservative Alliance. And tonight we're talking about our First Amendment rights and how the Affordable Health Care Act is actually trampling on our First Amendment rights. And Nick, you know, we were talking about how it's forcing the church
Yes.
to go against its conscience.
Exactly.
Basically. And you know, and they're not, some churches are speaking out about it, but there are a lot that aren't. And you know, I wanted to read you a part of a letter that Archbishop Myers of Newark wrote, and in it he said, the Affordable Health Care Act, it's institutional coercion by the government against conscience and government intrusion into the ordering of church institutions. Now that's from Archbishop Myers
Yes.
of the Newark Archdiocese.
Right.
So why isn't that being said from the pulpit?
Let me just step back 1 second first and do this the right way.
Okay.
There are many priests out there who are speaking this. I happen to know a number of them personally. I'm blessed in my parish and some of the closer parishes where they are boldly speaking what has to be said. And I commend them. I commend Archbishop Myers, all the bishops who took the initiative when this came out to come up with the Fortnight of Freedom, to mobilize their flocks and to try to make a strong response to this. What I'm seeing, and the sad part is it's not transferring into action in the churches. I mean, I've been trying to speak at a number of churches to speak the way we're speaking tonight and tie it into what's happening with the overall ideological problems that we're having in the country. And I've had a number of churches who have, you know, agreed to it, Knights of Columbus groups. They've heard it, they understand. It does not violate that so-called separation of church and state. And that's where people really get off base on it. What you can't do, and just to clarify that issue, is you cannot, as the church group, endorse a candidate or a political party.
That's right.
That aside, you can speak about ideologies and policies that affect your faith, your country, the future of our country, for our kids.
Right.
So we can go there, but we just can't do the endorsement. And this is where I think a lot of the priests are just, they're timid, they don't want to approach this. And the other issue that I think really weighs into this is for years now the church has bought into the social justice, but social justice as defined by who? As defined by the left, social justice translates into redistribution of wealth,
which is really a Marxist idea.
Yes.
You know, equal justice. There's a difference between social justice and equal justice.
Yep. So they get that. You start to subjugate generation after generation to thinking that only the government that can care for them, which really strips people of their self-respect, their human dignity. We're all made in the image and likeness of God. But then we have respect, we have dignity, and that comes from personal responsibility and providing for yourself. So they bought into that notion. But when you buy into that notion, that secular social justice, what you get the whole package. You get the abortion rights, you get the
gay rights.
The gay rights, you get the violation of our First Amendment. This all comes part and parcel with social justice that they bought into. Were their intents good? Absolutely. Misguided, maybe? Just look at the results and let the results speak for themselves. And that, I think, has put a mindset with a lot of the religious communities and some of the priests to not want to speak out.
Well, you know, I want to read a quote to that point. I want to read a quote by Pope Benedict, okay? And this is where I believe the priests should take note, and that is that, where is it now? This is from, here's from the Holy Father. The legitimate separation of church and state cannot be taken to mean that the church must be silent on certain issues, nor that the state may choose not to engage or be engaged by the voices of committed believers in determining the values which will shape the future of the nation. So based on that, the Holy Father is saying you need to express these ideas. And you know, and when 54% of Catholics voted for this administration,
Yes.
they voted for these policies. So, you know, they have to weigh the policies against Catholic doctrine
Exactly.
and where their conscience falls.
Exactly.
And I'm telling you, I don't think people understand that. I mean, hopefully when they hear this and hear you, and by the way, you're available to speak to organizations?
Absolutely, absolutely.
And they just have to go on your website?
If they get to the website, there's a contact number on there. If they just email me, I make myself available whenever and wherever, unless I've got a previous commitment.
Yeah.
Because I think it's important that we do this.
Yeah.
I want to go back to your point about the 54% of Catholics voting for this president. I was speaking at a pro-life dinner in my parish just before the election of 2010, and I wasn't supposed to address these issues, these political issues, but it came up. I had to. It was bubbling in me. And I mentioned that 54%, someone made the comment, it's a shame that the state of New Jersey, being a Catholic church, has the problems that it has, political problems. I said, it's not a shame, it's a fact. 54% of Catholics voted for this administration. And as you pointed out, with the administration, they got a Congress that will rubber stamp whatever he wants to do, and these 54% of Catholics have de facto agreed to 2 Supreme Court justices who will do everything to overturn any legislation pro-life. So these Catholics have sealed their own doom, because God forbid one of the other justices were to pass away, we would get another pro-choice justice, and then we'd be left with nothing but prayer. And even though that's very important, would it really hurt to have some legislative or judicial clout on our side? This is why elections have consequences.
Yeah. Well, again, I guess we're pointing out the Catholic Church because it's really who they're going after.
Yes.
So, hence, you know, I'm surprised that you know, when you in some of the churches in the missalette, they give you conditions for receiving communion.
Yeah.
And you have to do this and you have to be this, blah blah blah, and fine. But when at the Democratic Convention they have Carolyn Kennedy, Catherine Sebelius, and Joe Biden, who are quote Catholics, who are going totally against what the Catholic Church is preaching. Where is the outrage? Where is the moral outrage? You know, it's fine if you believe that.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not saying you shouldn't say it, but don't hide behind the banner of being a Roman Catholic, because it's an oxymoron. It doesn't make sense.
There's some information out there about the Obama plan to divide and conquer the church, and part of it is putting out there these Catholics in name only, who many of you have mentioned, and they're professing their beliefs, and they have their followers behind them. And then you've got the Catholics who believe their faith and want to practice it. And this is part of a divide and conquer mentality that's going on there.
But it's up to the hierarchy to point this out.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. I understand why they don't do the condemnation, because there is... You don't know if that person is having a change of conscience right then and there before you condemn them, and you know what? That's fine.
Oh, I agree.
That's church teaching.
That's right.
That's fine.
Right.
But there's also, what's the word I'm looking for here? The appearance of condoning.
Well,
and
it's called a sin of omission.
Yeah. and you know, when it appears like it's okay and people see it, then the people who are maybe on the fence or not so strong in their faith may say, well, you know, if this is okay, then well, I guess it's okay to vote for these people.
Right.
I guess they're okay.
Right. It's not that serious of an issue.
Yeah, and I just think we just have to be a little stronger in holding to our beliefs, and I think it needs to be professed a little bit stronger from the pulpit. And I'll give you one thing that our group is doing right now, because we think this is so important. We are targeting the swing states.
Okay.
And we are compiling lists of the churches in those states. And I'm going to put together the correspondence to the pastors in those states, asking them to prayerfully consider whether they should be doing more in speaking directly about matters of faith and matters of conscience, and not telling people who to vote for,
Exactly.
but laying out for them
Facts.
that these are our teachings. And when you go into the voting booth, you should have your informed conscience based on these teachings. Now, if we send out a few thousand of these letters and hit only 3 or 5%, each of these pastors can touch 1,000 people.
Well, this is the whole point. And, you know, to your point, this is a quote from the United States Conference of Bishops, of Catholic Bishops. Responsible citizenship is a virtue, and participation in political life is a moral obligation. So, to your point,
Yes.
you know, in other words, we're not telling people how to vote. We're telling
Right.
people the facts. We're telling people to know
Yes.
why you're voting this. I mean, even if you decide this is what you believe, that's fine. But, you know, a lot of Catholics, I truly believe, do not get it and do not know what's going on. And like it's their duty. It's their duty to know the facts and to know, and then base their, you know, how they want to vote, base that on their conscience and see where the Catholic doctrine stands. Are they in line with it, or aren't they in line with it? And that's up to them. Nobody's, you know, that's a personal choice.
Exactly. When you get in that
But you have
booth.
to be informed.
Yeah.
And if the hierarchy is not informing, you know, then that's a problem. You know, well, I mean, it's just, you know, there's another quote that I like, and it's religious freedom is a fundamental right of all. This right does not depend on any government's decision to grant it. It is God-given.
Exactly.
So, you know, when they force you to do something against your conscience, the government, I mean, this is America. This is America. And I don't understand how people don't see that people of conscience are being forced to do something that they don't believe in.
Exactly.
Now that's morally wrong.
It's morally wrong. And they're either not paying attention, or they're not hearing it, or they don't care. And unfortunately, we're becoming more and more of a society of people who don't care.
Well, all I can say is people need to remember that men and women are on the front lines dying for these freedoms that are under attack. And so, you know, I just really thank you so much for coming tonight.
My pleasure, Ray.
You know, like I said, they can go on your website, Veritas Conservative.org,
Alliance.org.
Veritas Conservative.Alliance.org.
Long, a very long name.
Yes, but you can, you know, get in touch with you. Okay. And so I just want to leave you with this quote. And thank you very much for joining us tonight. And the quote is from Abraham Lincoln. The United States government must not undertake to run the churches. When an individual, in the church or out of it, becomes dangerous to the public interest, he must be checked. Thank you and good night.